So you have to keep in mind, like the body doesn't just rebel, it is giving you little signals letting you know something's out of balance. All right, so in this video, I'm going to share with you natural ways that you can help alleviate or at least extremely relieve things like PMS and PMDD. So helping with bloating right before you start your period, sleepless nights and issues with insomnia, that hormonal acne you get all over, mood swings, migraines, breast tenderness. I'm going to give you some of the top natural remedies for how you can really reduce those symptoms and sometimes even alleviate them with these natural solutions. So, to get started, I first want to explain to you what are the symptoms of PMS and PMDD. So, PMS is basically the mood swings, the acne, the breast tenderness, the migraines, um, water retention, things like that. That's PMS. PMDD is an extreme version of that. That also includes anxiety, severe depression, insomnia, sleep issues, even things like heavy periods or like really bad cramping can be a part of that process. So that's basically what PMS and PMDD is. For it to be categorized as PMS, it would have to be within the 7 to 10 days leading up to your period. And we're going to get into the reason of why this is. And it's because those 7 to 10 days prior to your period are usually when you're having the most hormonal fluctuations with estrogen, progesterone, and your body is going through the most amount of changes. So, to give you a really basic understanding of how your cycle works so that you even know what's happening, is because most women, this is a crazy thing, is most women, they know they have a cycle and they know they ovulate, but they don't actually know what is happening to their body. And I always feel like education is empowering because this way, when you do start to have some of these symptoms happening, you can be aware of like, oh, I'm not crazy. This is this hormone doing this. So all I need to do is do this. So the first 1 to 7 days is usually when most women are going through menstruation, the menstrual cycle. At this point, all of your hormones are at the lowest, which is what actually causes you to start your period. So estrogen drops off. When estrogen drops off, your uterine lining starts to shed, and that is what the bleed is. Right around day six-ish, day 5, day 6 is when your estrogen starts to come up. The reason it starts to come up is because it is getting prepared for ovulation or the follicular phase, which is days 7 to 14. These days are usually when you have a lot of energy because your estrogen is higher. You might notice that your libido is a lot higher because your body is prepping you for the opportunity to get pregnant and ovulation. When you get around ovulation, you might notice like different discharge and changes in just your overall like sleep, mood, energy levels, things like that. It is because your estrogen is giving you energy to produce an egg for ovulation, which is why it's going to increase your sex drive to try and get you to get pregnant. So that's day 7 to 14, roughly. It depends on how long your cycle is. Right after ovulation, what happens is your estrogen starts to come down, your progesterone starts to come up. So it kind of looks, if I can do this on here. So estrogen comes down, progesterone comes up. So progesterone, this is going to be like days 14 to 21 ish. This isn't a perfect cycle. If your cycle is 28 days, this is usually what happens. If you're more like in the 30 to 35-day range, you're just stretching this out a little bit. But so this third part of your cycle, days 14 to around 21 ish, is when progesterone is higher than estrogen. Now, in a perfect cycle and in a perfect hormonal pattern, when everything is synced up and in balance, you should feel pretty good during this time because progesterone acts as an anti anxiety, it's a calming hormone, it's a natural anti inflammatory, antihistamine. It's a very good, calm hormone, and you sleep really well and you feel really good. That's when it's in balance. If it's not in balance, and instead of progesterone being higher, you have estrogen that's higher, what you experience are symptoms of PMS, PMDD, and a lot of extremes. So you have a situation where you have estrogen dominance or relative estrogen dominance, where you just have more estrogen than you do progesterone to balance it out. So you might experience these things days 14 to 21. And then around day 21 ish, 22 ish is when progesterone starts to drop off, estrogen starts to come back down. You also experience PMS and PMDD during these times because estrogen is going to be higher than progesterone. So that's kind of the basic rundown of what's going on. So when you're having symptoms of PMS and PMDD, first off, when the body is in balance, we don't have these symptoms. Like, it's been in our society, like it's been coined such a normal thing of like, oh, it's just my period. Oh, it's just PMS. Oh, it's just PMDD. And like you go to a traditional OBGYN and they either put you on birth control or they put you on an antidepressant or anti-anxiety, not looking at things as a whole, that you actually shouldn't really be having extreme symptoms when you're in balance. So if you have something going on that is causing you severe discomfort with some of the symptoms that I listed, that is your body letting you know, hey, something's out of balance. I just need you to give me the environment or tools to get things back in balance. So that's pretty much what PMS and PMDD is. Now, causes of estrogen dominance and hormonal imbalances. There's a lot of different things. Number one, the food and nutrition you consume has a lot to do with it. And I know people don't like to hear that, but it really does. If you're consuming excess sugar, excess processed foods, high amounts of caffeine, alcohol, dairy, cow milk, dairy specifically, that can cause a high amount of estrogen in comparison to progesterone. So one of the things too, especially women that are starting to go through menopause, if they're on that end of it and they're having hot flashes and all that, if you cut out sugar, it'll immediately start to improve those symptoms. But just in general, sugar, processed foods, caffeine, and alcohol. The caffeine and alcohol, the reason is your body detoxes excess estrogen through the liver. When you are consuming high amounts of caffeine and alcohol, it causes one, a stress response on the adrenal glands, but number two, it backs up the liver. The liver also is detoxing the caffeine and the alcohol. So when it has to take care of all these different things, and you have excess estrogen, it's going to have a hard time metabolizing those things for you. And you end up having estrogen dominance. So in the very beginning of figuring out how to alleviate some of the symptoms, you can start very basic with the nutrition that you're consuming every single day by cutting back on sugar, processed food, cutting back on cow milk, dairy, and cutting back on caffeine and alcohol. Those things right there are automatically going to help alleviate things a little bit, especially things like hormonal acne. A lot of that's dairy and sugar, your sleep, just your overall mood swings and energy levels. If all you hear from this video is that, that is going to help you with that. So when you're trying out different things, you want to give it at least one full cycle, so a month of not having it, to see then on the next cycle, are your symptoms a little bit alleviated? So the other part of this is you can also have stress, high amounts of cortisol. So this is kind of one of the things with our bodies is progesterone is our calming hormone. Cortisol is the energy stress hormone. If you are highly stressed and the body is out of balance and isn't doing a great job with managing the stress, or you are not doing a great job with managing the stress, your body will pull from progesterone, your calming hormone, and use the nutrients and energy that would have gone to that to produce more cortisol. So that's another cause of what can cause PMS and PMDD. On top of this, we're going to get into this a lot. So I hope you're taking notes, because anytime somebody's got this, and myself included, like part of the reason I wanted to do this video is because for years, I was having issues with anxiety. I was having issues with sleep. I couldn't fall asleep. And then when I did fall asleep, I would wake up 5 times in the middle of the night. I was having issues with breast tenderness and like really heavy periods. And nobody could give me, it was like I almost had to like plan my life around my cycle of like, okay, I know days 7 to 10 before my period, like I'm just going to be miserable. And when I would go to a traditional doctor, they would always try and put me on synthetic hormones or birth control. And I was like, no, this isn't making sense. Like the body doesn't just get out of whack. Like there's got to be a cause and effect for everything. So it's why I wanted to do this video, because a lot of these things, not only in like training that I've done, but also in my own self of figuring these things out, has helped so much. So we're going to get into a deep dive of this because I want you to have a better understanding for your own body so that you can have the education to make the best decisions. And if you still decide you need some of the other traditional medicines to help you, that's totally fine. This is just giving you some natural solutions. So, okay, let's get into some vitamin and mineral deficiencies that can cause PMS and PMDD. So, one of the game changers in anybody having issues is magnesium and vitamin B6. So, when we go throughout our cycles, our magnesium levels actually change. And one of the biggest causes for water retention, breast tenderness, cramping, and sleep issues is a magnesium deficiency because our body depletes the magnesium as those hormone levels rise. So if you think about it, like I was talking about days 14 to 21, those hormones levels rise. When you have higher levels of hormones, it depletes your magnesium. So then when it drops off, you're depleted in magnesium, you're experiencing all the symptoms. So multiple studies have been done, and even I have used this for myself. If you start incorporating magnesium, especially if you have a little bit more during your luteal phase, which is right after ovulation, you're going to notice a huge release in your symptoms. And I've done other videos talking about vitamins and minerals, but the best forms of magnesium, magnesium citrate and magnesium glycinate or glycinate. Magnesium glycinate is going to have a calming effect, so you're definitely going to want to take that at night before you go to bed. Magnesium citrate, you can take in the morning. It's not going to make you sleepy. If you have a sensitive stomach, though, you just have to be careful because it can cause a laxative effect if you take too much. But those two forms of magnesium, if you take them around the times that you normally have symptoms, you should experience a huge amount of relief and noticeable improvement in those symptoms. So the other thing that I mentioned is vitamin B6, specifically in the active form. So when you buy your B vitamins, on the back, it'll tell you the form it is. Most of them are in can't even think of how it's said. Pyroxidine, I can't think of how it's said, but basically it says like HCl, and then it'll say like pyroxidine, whatever. You'll see that that is not the activated form. You have to be careful with that form because it is very easy to get toxic levels of B6 when it's from that form. What you want to look for is where it says phosphate, or it'll say B6 and then P5P. And at the description, I will link everything that I am mentioning for you of different brands that I recommend, that I prefer, that are in these forms. So you're not like, all right, what about this brand, that brand? Like, I'll just put it in there. But if you go looking for your own, when you're buying B6, you always want to make sure it's in the activated form. Helps it for your body to be able to metabolize it and absorb it a lot better. So those two things right there, magnesium and vitamin B6 are going to be, if that's all that you use, are going to be huge game changers for you in alleviating a lot of PMS and PMDD symptoms. With the B6, the dosage, you kind of want to start off small to see how you respond. You can tell within an hour to an hour and a half of taking these vitamins whether or not they're working or not. So if you take like 100 milligrams of magnesium and then like 30 milligrams of activated B6, you'll know, you should feel within an hour and a half if your symptoms have improved. Anytime you start taking anything, you always want to start with the lowest dose and then just kind of build from there and see what is the lowest amount that your body needs, not the maximum dose. Magnesium and B6 also help with balancing your serotonin receptors. So part of the reason for the mood swings right before your period and the anxiety and the depression is estrogen is responsible for our serotonin. So right before our period, when it starts to drop off, that's why you're like crying, you're moody, you feel like the world hates you and you don't know why. And then you start your period. It's because when you start your period, your estrogen comes back up. Estrogen is responsible for serotonin, your happy hormone. When you use magnesium and vitamin B6 activated, it helps stabilize those receptors so you don't feel it as extreme. Like it just helps balance those out and stabilize them. So those two vitamins, or the one vitamin and mineral, magnesium is a mineral, vitamin B6 is a vitamin. Those are natural ways you can immediately start to sense some relief on top of the nutrition. So going back to the nutrition, blood sugar imbalance and eating less than what your body needs can mess up your hormones and put your body into a state of stress. So there's another video that I did that was all about nutrition for your mental health. There's also another video about stabilizing blood sugar that'll go into those things a little bit more in depth, if you want to watch those as well. But when you have unstable blood sugar or you are under fueling, you are putting your body in a state of stress. So, like I was explaining earlier with the progesterone and cortisol, when your body doesn't have enough nutrients and food to produce all of your hormones on top of all of your neurotransmitters. So, your neurotransmitters are your serotonin, dopamine, GABA, your calming, happy, like driven, all these things, the motivating neurotransmitters. When it doesn't have enough of that, it is forced to produce more cortisol to give you energy throughout the day because it's not getting the energy from food and nutrients that it's consuming. So when you're under fueling and you're under eating, and especially in the weight loss world, this happens all the time. And when women get into like bodybuilding competing and bikini competing, and they put their body in such extreme stressful states for long periods of time, if you do that long term, you end up with a lot of autoimmune diseases, metabolic diseases, hormonal problems because your body has been starved for so long. So your body has to end up producing high amounts of cortisol, which ends up cortisol is the belly fat hormone, but it's also what causes things like anxiety and sleep issues and stress, acne, and all these other things because your nutrition is too low to sustain hormone production. So you have to make sure you are consuming enough calories. Carbohydrates is huge. I know women always try and do low carbs and keto, and there's another video on that too about your macros and my feelings around all those things. But when you drop too low in carbohydrates, you screw up your hormone production. Like there's so much research on this that your body, so women's bodies, we need carbohydrates. When we consume carbohydrates, our bodies use that to produce DHEA, which is the precursor to producing progesterone, estrogen, FSH, LSA, all the hormones that we need. But if it doesn't have enough carbohydrates to do that, what it does instead is it produces a ton of cortisol. You end up feeling like crap all the time. And you're also trying to lose weight, but then you're not losing weight because your cortisol's high. You've slowed your metabolism down. So nutrition is a huge thing and it is super important making sure you are eating enough protein, fat, and carbohydrates throughout the day to sustain energy, to sustain your mental health, and to sustain hormone production and neurotransmitter production. If you don't know what your nutrition should be, I will also put the video in the description for you where I literally walk you through like calculator, pen and paper. Here's what to multiply. Here's how many carbs you need, calories you need, all of that. There's another video on that, but you do want to make sure that you're eating enough to make sure your body is able to produce everything that it needs. Another factor in this that's a natural factor, exercise. The way that our body detoxes excess hormones and just detoxes anything that we don't need is through sweat. When you exercise, you are naturally not only going to produce more endorphins and serotonin naturally to help with some of the like PMS stuff, but you are also going to detox excess estrogen in the sweat and the movement. You're going to reduce inflammation. And as you start to lose body fat, you're going to help keep that estrogen back in balance. Obviously, again, we don't want to drop too low in body fat because we do need a certain amount for hormone production. Cholesterol is super important for that. But if you are somebody who is overweight and has excess body fat to lose, getting those numbers back in check is going to help a lot with your severe PMS or PMDD symptoms. So you typically want to do 3 to 5 weeks resistance training. Please go lift some weights and do some strength training. That's going to help a lot with balancing testosterone, cortisol, DHEA, excess estrogen being flushed out. All right. So the other part of this, so that's kind of the nutrition and exercise portion of this. Not the last thing, because I'm going to give you some recommendations for vitamins, minerals, and herbs that you can use aside from that. But one of the big things in our culture that you have to be careful of is avoiding xenoestrogens. So, xenoestrogens are synthetic estrogens. So, they're not actually estrogen your body is producing, they're coming from things outside yourself. They bind to your estrogen receptors in your body and end up causing estrogen dominance. So, where do you find these things? Well, food that is non organic, where the producers are using pesticides, full of crap that's going to throw off your endocrine system, which is your hormone system, your personal care and household care products. A lot of people miss this, but if you are using products, if it's something as little as like your toothpaste, your hairspray, your shampoo, your cosmetics, your dish soap, your hand soap, face wipes, all these things, if you are not using things that are coming from natural sources, they are full of chemicals, parabens, sulfates, xenoestrogens that your body absorbs. We absorb things through breathing it in, through touching it, through our skin. Our skin is one of the greatest places we absorb things that will they're synthetic estrogens that will bind to your estrogen receptors and cause estrogen dominance. So what you are living in every single day is going to be a huge factor in that. And organic, if you can even just start with eating organic food instead of regular blueberries, get organic blueberries. Instead of regular coconut milk, get organic coconut milk, whatever it is. Even these small little things, you don't realize how all of it adds up over time when it's your nutrition, your stress, your exercise, and the food and items you're using every day. So these are small little things without even taking anything that you can do to help improve these symptoms. All right, so now we're going to get into some herbs, vitamins, and minerals that will help on top of all of this with alleviating a lot of these symptoms. So, like I said, magnesium being a mineral, vitamin B6 phosphate. Those are going to be a game changer for you. The next one is going to be ashwagandha. So, ashwagandha is an adaptogenic herb. It is natural, it's plant-based. And what this does is it helps regulate the cortisol throughout your body and helps you manage stress. Everybody is different. I recommend trying ashwagandha at night because for some people, it relaxes them very deeply and puts them into a deep sleep. Ashwagandha has also been used for insomnia. If you don't have a problem with it, you can start taking it twice a day. You can take it in the morning, you can take it at night. And what it does is it just helps regulate the body so that it's not on overdrive. It's not in high amounts of stress. Ashwagandha is also really important for regulating blood sugar. It helps with that as well. So that's an herb that you can start using to help manage stress, which the better you manage stress, the less cortisol, the more progesterone your body's going to have to balance out with estrogen. So that's the second one is ashwagandha. Another one that's really great is zinc. Zinc is important for hormone production, but it also is a natural anti-inflammatory. So if you're feeling kind of achy and that's one of the symptoms you get, or that acne, sometimes acne, hormonal acne, not only is from the hormone changes, but it's also from inflammation in the body. Zinc can help a lot with that. And a lot of people are deficient in zinc. And so consuming this is going to help boost the immune system to really support those other systems as well. Probiotics. If you are not on a probiotic is so important for gut health. Gut health is important because it's where we end up excreting all of the excess hormones. So in order to do that, you have to have all the right good bacteria that can bind to the excess estrogen and excess hormones and toxins and flush it out. There's another video that I was talking about, like your gut is where it all starts. You consume food that our body should be using to take care of our organs and all of our other systems. But if you're consuming this food and you don't have the right gut microbiome and bacteria, to break it down, absorb the right things, then you're consuming it and then excreting it without actually like taking care of what it needs to take care of. So a probiotic is really, really important for balancing out your body's ability to eliminate excess hormones and toxins, but also to absorb the nutrients that you are consuming. So that's going to help a lot too. It can also, probiotics are also important for women for vaginal health with yeast infections, UTIs. Again, it can help with the hormonal acne as well. Another herb, or actually herbs you can use, is anything that's going to support your liver. So things like dandelion, milk thistle. And the reason we're doing this is because the liver is one of your detox organs. So it is constantly flushing out all the excess hormones. But like I said in the beginning, if you're consuming caffeine and alcohol and processed foods and sugar and things that back your liver is going to need extra support and health to be able to continually balance out your systems and flush out your hormones. So it doesn't necessarily have to be like a herb capsule, but even if you just drink dandelion tea, there's a lot of really great like herbal teas out there that are specifically for helping balance out the liver. That's another natural great thing that you can do. Lastly, you can also use something called calcium deglucarate. So calcium deglucarate is not the same as the regular calcium that we consume for our strong bones. Calcium deglucarate, if you do decide to do this, it is great for helping lower estrogen levels in the body to get it in balance with where your progesterone is. So this would happen in a case where you aren't necessarily like high estrogen. You might just be high in comparison to the amount of progesterone. So calcium deglucarate could be a great option. You want to start like everything else with the lowest dose, which is around like 200 and 250 milligrams. But what calcium deglucarate does is it inhibits the activity, I always like say this funny, of beta glucuronidase, which is where processed estrogen. So if it's been processed through the liver's like, all right, we don't need this excess estrogen. It takes it, processes it, and puts it into your gut. At that point, it should be absorbed and excreted through your urine and bowels. Calcium deglucarate makes sure that estrogen actually gets excreted instead of what can happen is your body reabsorbs it back through the bloodstream. Calcium deglucarate is great. There's a lot of really great brands that have that. Like I said, all this stuff in the description, I will give you a link to help you with this. But there really are a lot of great natural ways that you can help alleviate a lot of PMS and PMDD without having to go on like prescriptions, anti-anxiety, antidepressants, hormonal birth control or replacement. There's nothing wrong with that. If you feel you absolutely need that, that is totally fine. I just wanted to give you some natural options to try out to see how it goes for you. So vitamins, minerals, your nutrition, your sleep. Obviously, mindfulness and meditation is going to play a huge part into this because the more mindful you are and you have a good meditation practice, the better you're going to be able to handle things like stress and changes. And just having the awareness of this, of being educated on what's going on in your body, helps a lot too. Because now when you have these experiences, you can be like, okay, let me think about this. I'm feeling moody. Maybe if I do some magnesium and B6, because I know that I probably am just moody because my estrogen drops off and it affects my serotonin. Did I eat enough carbohydrates today? Did I get enough sleep? Am I exercising? Am I consuming good quality organic foods? All these things play a factor whether you realize it or not. There's a really great book by somebody named Laura Bryden called How to Fix Your Period or The Period Fix or something like that. She uses the analogy of how we give our period such a bad rap because of these symptoms. But in reality, a period is just a report card letting you know your body's overall health. Typically, when you have a cycle where you don't really have much symptoms, it's usually a month that you were exercising, eating really well, you weren't drinking a lot of alcohol and caffeine, you were managing stress, keeping that in check, and taking care of yourself. Those are usually the months that we don't have those things. But when everything is out of balance, our body will reflect those things back to us and let us know, like, hey, like this is too much. Like you're too stressed. I'm not getting enough sleep. I'm not getting enough food. I'm getting too much alcohol and caffeine and not enough of this. Like That's all it is. Our bodies are just responding, letting us know. And the more education you have about this, the better you can learn to build a relationship with your body, work with your body, instead of constantly trying to just like put a band-aid or a temporary fix on something that really does have a natural solution. So you have to keep in mind, like the body doesn't just rebel. The body doesn't just decide all of a sudden, like, all right, here's all these problems. It is giving you little signals, letting you know something's out of balance. Like the body doesn't lie. There's another great book called The Body Keeps the Score about how like literally everything we're doing in life, emotionally, mentally, physically, nutritionally, the body will reflect back. And that's what this is all about. So hopefully this video gives you like some really solid tools and ideas and options that you can start incorporating into your everyday routine that will help alleviate a lot of those PMS and PMDD symptoms. But let me know if this video was helpful. Leave me a comment. Let me know if you tried some of this and it worked or it didn't work. Let me know that as well. Like I always love having like a two-way conversation about this and getting your feedback on that. If you haven't subscribed, make sure to like and subscribe because I am putting these videos out regularly. But yeah, that's it for today's video. I hope you have an awesome week and an awesome month ahead and give some of these remedies a try. I'll see you in the other videos.